New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Welcome to Ministers Talking a weekly program where Rev Briz and Rev Elzia and their guests chat about current affairs, world events, spiritual principles, and any old they want to talk about. Based on the New Thought philosophy and ancient wisdoms, Ministers Talking shares a visionary perspective of the evolving spiral called spiritual living. Join us each week as we explore the emerging paradigm of life on planet Earth and beyond.
And hello, dear ones. Rev Robert with you over here.
Rev Z right here.
Rev D over here.
And this is Ministers Talking Shit for Friday, June 9th. Thank you for being with us. Yes, we have our dear friend and a special guest with us today, Reverend Darrell Jones. Darrell, you've been on, I believe, I forgot to ask in the pre-show. I'm pretty sure you've been on this program before, but I can't remember when.
This is the first time it worked out, I think. We've tried a couple of times, but I don't think I've been on before.
Well, then welcome. We're glad you finally made it around to being here with us. Now, folks, if this is your first time with us, this is the show where, well, we get to, just like the promo says, get to talk about any old shit we want to talk about. And we do that every Friday morning. You're welcome to join the conversation, leave a comment, give us a like, give us a share, give us a subscribe, any of those things that you enjoy and that make sense to you. Push any good buttons you like. And I guess we've got to start out our conversation today with the big news in the U.S. Now, folks, again, normally a lot of times on Friday mornings, Elzia and I get done and then I go look at something and there's a bigger story than what we talked about. I can't see that happening today because yesterday, Donald Trump was indicted on 7 federal counts. Now, we don't know exactly what the charges are, and we're not going to know until Tuesday, it looks like at this point. But he was indicted on 7 federal counts, one of which is underneath the Espionage Act, is what I understand. And all of these relate to the documents case and his handling of documents in Mar-a-Lago. Let's jump right into it. Rev Darrell? Reactions, responses. What do we need to know?
I don't know what you need to know. I just know I need to take a deep breath. I mean, there's been so much back and forth and finger pointing and, not knowing the exact details. The one thing I do know is that people are hungry for power, and there's been a lot of manipulation for people to either sustain that power or be pushed out of that power. And without looking at a certain individual, my prayer is that this starts to show just the way we need to check ourselves, and check one another in terms of that. The term I think about all the time, I can't remember who first introduced it to me, but was power hoarding. You think of someone hoarding things in their life, and there is a sickness in the world of people thinking they need to hoard power in order to be okay. And I think the more in power, perceived power, or political power you get, that sickness gets a little strong. And people do some crazy things to keep hoarding. And so I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what you said Tuesday. That's the details.
Yeah, that's what I keep seeing is most likely he'll surrender on Tuesday and there will be an arraignment. And then at that point, we will see exactly what this indictment holds.
Yeah. I to be honest, and I don't, necessarily agree with the policies of Trump. But it's sad, really, to really sit here and think about it. I think in one respect it's sad that we've allowed the culture and individuals who seek this power hoarding like Trump to really infect the whole it's like a virus, right? It's affected excuse me, the whole country, the whole globe, in terms of people doing these weird things to to display power. Or, there's something that we'll probably get to about the woman shooting another woman and killing her through the door. That's a power play. And we, as a people, we should understand about power. Look at these fires. That's real power, right? You may think you got some power, but we ain't stopped them yet. And so the sadness I feel about this is someone's going to look at this, because he's going to be depends on what the charges are. He might not be grandstanding this time, is because that espionage charge is a serious charge. But it's and from a spiritual perspective, I'm hoping it clicks the button in all of us to start trying to be a little more humble, a little more conciliatory in expressing everything. My oldest daughter was very vocal in elementary and middle school, and her teacher said, you do not have one unpublished thought. You don't need to publish all your thoughts. Right. And that's and that's what we need to start trying to figure out.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, and as we share this, I hadn't thought of it from that perspective, Darrell. Thank you. Right, hoarding of power, because we could say the same exact thing about Joe Biden at this moment.
Absolutely.
I was on a call with a friend yesterday, and he said, I'm 74 years old. I can't imagine running a country at 74. And okay, different specializations. Joe's been in his 40 some odd years now, so he knows the ropes, and he's well seasoned in this type of a position in public service and politics. And yet we're not allowing for the healthy debate even within the Democratic Party at this point. Right? Joe's not the only guy running for president on the Democratic as a Democrat this year. Interestingly enough, I did see something where I think Chris Christie has finally thrown his hat into the ring on the Republican side. So we're going to have a healthy debate. Who knows? Maybe maybe their main candidate will be dressed in orange, but we're going to have a healthy debate of some sort on the Republican side of the aisle as to how they want to be represented and how to express their values. But on the Democrat side, we're saying, no, we don't want to talk about any of that. We're just going to keep the power where it is. We're going to play it safe and not have public discourse, not have an open discourse, just have a hoarding of power.
You just gave me an image, and I couldn't help but chuckle. I don't know who the nominee may be on the Republican side, but imagine there's a Republican and Democratic debate. Between President Biden and whoever the Republicans, I don't know if he could, if one of the younger candidates get in there who's, really articulate and energetic and know how to stick to puns. I don't know how, because he's going to have to be directly on script. He can't come off script.
No.
Biden won't be able to come off script.
No.
Can he stay on script?
It would be. We know Trump can't stay on script. So imagine those two debating again.
Yeah, I pray that's not the case.
Yeah, that's our prayer here too. My prayer here
too. They can go debate, but let it be in a bar somewhere, right? Like, not on TV, please.
Yes,
not representing our country.
Yeah, that would be memes. That'd be meme city right there. They'd get 1,000 memes out of that.
Exactly. Our dear friend Linda here in Colorado said, I hope Marianne Williamson gets some attention this time. Love her thinking. Yes, Linda, right? And Marianne does
represent Cornell West.
she represents that new thought philosophy, the new thought way of life, if you will, and the belief system. And I think that's part of why to me, it seems so out of place, so out of balance, that the Democratic Party isn't and it's not all Democrats, right? There are a lot of Democrats that want to hear what Marianne has to say, and she is getting more video and she is getting a bit more press. I don't think as much as we would like. It's a shame when the press secretary, the White House press secretary, belittles her and makes fun of her and doesn't take her candidacy seriously, because I believe she is saying a lot of what a lot of people in America want to believe and want to hear more of from their politicians.
Absolutely.
And like you said before, if nothing else, and we need this in all spheres of life, I think right now, is we need people representing multiple points of interest or concern to have the debate, right?
Yes.
Right.
Because right now, there's such a narrow band of stuff that gets reported that are important, yes, but there are other things that are just as important or maybe even more important, but the manipulation of it for money or media is a little more difficult to do. And so they may do a little spot here or just totally ignore it. And again, and those things have no attention. So they get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then the next thing you know, you ask the question, well, where did that come from? Well, it's been there all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
When it the other day, there was a minister's call, and the question was, what is it that you see being the biggest barrier to any of these new thought principles moving forward as we go into the future? And I, right off the bat, I said, I think it's critical thinking. And there is a unwillingness by our humanity to get uncomfortable. And I think that is something that is required to critically think.
Yes.
And the thing that is just feeding that fire is that people, I don't want to get into a conversation of what was or what wasn't accurate, but the whole word disinformation has been labeled upon anything that sits just outside of any sort of status quo. And when it comes to political movement and growth, we need, for lack of a better phrase, I think, disinformation. We need people coming in saying, this is something outside of what we've been doing for the past X amount of years. And there's, I was excited to see, I know people have opinions about him and how he may move, but when Cornel West said, yes, I'm going to, get on the ticket and with Robert Kennedy Jr., I was like, yes, throw them in the mix too with Marianne Williamson, because that old school thought of I'm going to hold on to this power just so I can get some money from these people that are funding over here.
Yes.
No, I want to be given as much. I want to be overwhelmed with possibility so that I can make a critical decision about who can synergize and take all the information and work with everyone, not just that party, not just this one train of thought, but someone who's going to be able to hold it all and really, make decisions for the best interest. And I think to, put a bow, if we can, around this at all, going back to, what's happening with Trump and the indictments it's, we can look at him and we can make it about his personality. He's very, very extreme and what has happened in the country around that is, but it is indicative of something that we're all privy to and that we're all contributing to. And it is that power hunger, right? We want the people that we like to have all the power. Yeah. And we will say things and we will do things and we'll post things online and in the name of, this is right and we got to make that happen. But it doesn't, it's like bullying. Bullying doesn't do anything except hurt everybody. And I think that the power hoarding that not only our country, but our world is engaged in is just like bullying. It's at the cost of nothing towards our health.
And you bring up 2 points real quick. Imagine what power looks like if you also have privilege.
Right.
That makes it even more whatever. I don't even know what the word would be for that. But I had not heard that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Cornel West were I mean, because if nothing else, if you come in to debate Cornell, you better come prepared with books and people in your ear, and you better have all your stuff straight, because as a historian and a theologian in terms of his study, he will eat you alive.
Well, and as we're sharing, it keeps coming back to me that one of the things missing in all of this is dialogue. Right. And I want to talk, and I want to kind of pivot just a little bit to our other big story of the week, and that's Ocala, Florida. So if you're not following, folks, a Black woman, single mother of 4, is in a long-running neighborly dispute with a white woman. And I don't know, I keep being reminded, good fences make good neighbors, because it sounds like there wasn't a fence here. One way or the other, the kids end up, probably being on the other woman's lawn, and I guess they left some roller skates on her lawn, and somehow the white woman comes in possession of their iPad and all this. And okay, there's been tension in that community, between those two neighbors. The police have been called to these residences no less than 6 times in the last 18 months. Right. That's enough that, to me, some community policing should get involved. There should be some sort of mediation and dialoguing involved, some way of putting these people together to say, let's peacefully work out our differences. But instead, the white woman shoots through the door, kills the Black woman in front of 2 of her children, and claims stand your ground because she's in Florida. Now, the woman has been arrested, and she is in custody. She is being charged, although interestingly enough, with manslaughter. Not sure why it is that the Black folk always get charged with murder and the white folks always get charged with manslaughter. That sounds like some white splaining to me right there. But could not all of this been avoided simply by facilitated conversations, getting people in a room and saying, okay, we know you have differences. What do we need to do? Maybe build a good fence.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say. If nothing else, let's chip in and make a fence here. And because, manslaughter charges are normally, if there's a mistake, if it wasn't in it, if you shoot through a door intentionally, and I wasn't cleaning my gun at the door and it went off. I intentionally went and got my gun and shot through the door. There's nothing happenstance about that. That is shooting that gun with intent. And if someone dies, it should be murder, at least 2nd-degree murder. I didn't think I was aiming at this part. I was aiming at another part. But I mean, and unfortunately, this whole Florida stand your ground and this whole thing, I listened to a story yesterday. I forget the young man's name. He was part of the Parkland shooting, and he didn't get hurt, but he just graduated from Harvard, and he started this organization, and he turned it on his head, where he was at Harvard. He went and joined the gun club to learn he said, I went to learn everything about the gun, clean it. So when I'm talking to people about this, now I can talk intelligently. And now I'm in the gun club and I'm at competitions. And of course they recognize me, he says. They come over to me and they go, and he was like, no, take it down. I'm here. So when I speak to this point, I can speak more intelligently now than before. And, one thing he said, that he had been shooting guns since he was in 4th grade, because I didn't know this. His father was an FBI agent.
Wow.
and his father had gotten ill, and so he had to take him off the line of duty and put on another kind of job. But so this guy's been around guns for a while, and he understands them. And people were saying it was a conspiracy, he was saying, but he says, no, this is real life. And this is how we begin to have healthy debate and look at the issues to make critical decisions about how we live on this planet.
That's the critical thinking, right? He's like, all right, let me take the full spectrum of this. Let me understand it all, man.
Yeah.
Amen to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
May he thrive and prosper and become a leader in our country.
Exactly. If nothing else, we may not like the decisions, but we know he's done his homework when he comes to the table.
Yes.
Want to give a quick shout out to our brother Wayne, all the way from Calgary. Yes, America tends to reach for our weapons before we tend to sit down and come into dialogue with people. And it seems like that's so much more and more and more and more, but nobody wants to say we should do anything about keeping guns out of people's hands.
Yeah.
You know, it's a different situation, but the energy is the same. If I can, just a little story here. It's inspiring me to, in my neighborhood where I live here in Chicago, there's a big park, and it's just a beautiful kind of green space in the midst of the concrete jungle. There's, you know, a little prairie space with natural grasses. There's 3 or 4 baseball diamonds, a soccer field. The high school has its football stadium there. And I mean, all summer long, there's string quartets will go out and practice. I mean, there's just all sorts of stuff going on. And one of the things that a lot of the families, and I'm one of them, do is we take our dogs out to play. But there's a leash ordinance in Chicago that you can't take your dog off your leash, which I still respect. And at the same time, there's, you know, a handful of people that have their dogs well controlled, and they take them walking. They're just playing. You know, it's like no different than saying to your kid, go get on the swing set and have fun. And there's a woman that comes through the park, and it makes me, in terms of dialogue, I'm going to ask and find out. I'm sure that there is some mental illness there. But she is a sore spot in the neighborhood and in the park, to the point where she and other people just get crazy, and they're yelling at her and dropping F-bombs, and you're crazy. And she calls the police on people, and like their dog will run past them, and she's like, your dog bit me. Your dog is trying to kill me. And from that space of just like dialogue, I saw her interact with another woman the other day, and I didn't intervene, but it just made me think, if there was a little, like, I wonder what's going on for her. She's getting some sort of attention that she really needs in a negative way, but that's the only attention she's getting. What's going on for her? And it just makes me think with our neighbors, whether there's a fence in between us or not, you know, how often do we take the time to really have a dialogue and hear what's going on in people's lives? Because the stories that we make up, you know, all the conspiracies, you know, I'm not saying that they don't exist, but so quickly everyone's like, oh, it's a conspiracy. So it's trying to do so-and-so. It's like, well, okay. But what's behind that, though?
Yeah.
What's behind that?
Right.
A similar story, you know, that speaks to that. Just yesterday, I'm at the fast food restaurant. I'm grabbing some food, put my order in, I'm waiting. Lady comes up with her French fries and says, these are too crispy. I want another order. That's not what I ordered. They're supposed to be golden brown tender or whatever, right? And this was the second order that she was bringing back. So she had already been there once, asked for another batch. She got a second batch. Then she came back with that second batch, wanting a third batch. And she's like, I used to work at a restaurant, and I know what golden brown, and this is not. And it was about to get pretty intense over some French fries. Right. And so, like, I'm saying, well, if you got them the first time, I can see if you got them the first time and they weren't to your liking, okay, you say, can I have another order? Right. Fine. Okay. If I get a second order and it's the exact same as the first order, I'm not going back a third time. I'm just not coming back to the restaurant, maybe. Right.
Right.
But she went into a full-on dialogue and little contention there about an order of French fries. So what does that say? Like in the same case of the dog, this woman was home, had her gun. What's to say somebody don't get upset about French fries? There's no dialogue, and they go into the restaurant and go ballistic,
Right.
or go into the park and start taking dogs out, right? We have to be, and it goes back to all this we were saying, I think, in terms of critical thinking and dialogue, and to be able, you look at when they have school board meetings or some city council meetings, and you have the body, the school parents or people in that city. They go and they have dialogues at these meetings, and they have, you can present your ideas. We need to have some public forums like that just for how to live together. Maybe, I don't know.
Where was it? I saw a video. You said schools. I saw a video of a school. I think it was California, because it looked like there were a lot of people, and there were a lot of people out in the parking lot that couldn't get into the meeting, and it basically turned into a full-fledged riot.
It did.
Oh my God.
People are running all over the place. Cops are trying to set up skirmish lines. People are breaking through. They're beating on each other. And it's like, we don't even know what they were talking about. It was so contentious in the school board meeting because the violence, well, it's media, so the violence tends to lead.
Yeah.
And I watched this coverage, and I have no idea what they were fighting about. But everybody's out in the street swinging and yelling, and I don't want to call it entitlement, but it is that to me, I see this sense of, don't you dare impose upon me. Don't you dare, right? My $3 thing of fries at McDonald's. It's probably $10 these days, but right, don't you dare impose upon me in any way. Your kids aren't allowed to let a basketball roll into my yard, or I'm going to start shooting.
Right.
You cut me off in traffic, I'm going to start shooting. You disrespect me in a supermarket line, I'm going to start shooting. And it's how do we get back to that place of, hey man, right? I don't know what you're going through. You're kind of like what you're saying, Darrell, this woman. We don't know what she's going through, but we do know she's going through something, because every one of us on this planet is going through something. Yeah. We got something running in the back of our minds that's saying, damn, I'm having a hard time at home, or I'm having a hard time at work, or having a hard time with the bank, or everybody's got something. I really think if we slowed down, had some compassion for the people around us. And I hear that coming from you as well, Darrell, right? The desire to go forth and have this conversation with this woman, and not to say, what's wrong with you?
Right.
Why are you doing this? But to say, hey, this doesn't seem like it makes you happy. This doesn't seem like this brings you joy. What's going on? What can we help? What is it you're looking for? What do you need? And I don't want to say be our brother's keeper, but I want to say be our brother's friend again. Can't we just be friends again?
Yeah.
Right.
Before we started the show, we were getting into that whole thing of the, timeline of life and change and cause and effect, and the fact that things may not necessarily happen in our lifetime. And you just said, Rev B, about like, can't we go back to a time when this happened? And there's an interesting thing that I just kind of like had a kind of a bing clarity moment in terms of that idea of going back in history and understanding. I was watching one of the many memes and things online, and it was the school teacher he had all of his students line up, and they would come through, and he was trying to see who knew some sort of like pop culture history from the 90s. And, you know, they're like, what is a floppy disk? What is this? And the kids couldn't answer. And I just had an awareness in terms of this idea of like, can't we just go back? And it's like, you know what? We can't, because the current youth and generation, the only thing they know is what they've grown up with.
Yeah.
And there needs to be, in terms of, you know, our being our people's keeper, there needs to be a responsibility by us to instill in our youth and young adults a current history that will yield something in the future, probably be, you know, when we're gone. But if they don't have a reference point, and the only reference is, oh, when people push my button or people say something that I don't like or something's uncomfortable, then it's okay to go batshit crazy.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
You know,
well,
but there's no reference for anything else.
Push my button and I'll pull my trigger.
Yeah.
And if that's what if that's the norm, if that's what you've been brought up with, you've got one here too, right?
Yeah, and I mean, you know, listening to that point, it triggered this thought in my mind, something that I've been involved with for a while, and I think they're dying down. Rites of passage programs. Mm-hmm. When you look at indigenous cultures, I don't care where they are on the planet, they have continually put their young people, men and women, boys and girls, however you want to label it, through rites of passage programs. And almost all of them have, from beginning of birth, they have the motherhood or the fatherhood things when a child is about to come on the planet. Then when they get to a certain age, around puberty, they go through a rites of passage program. When they begin the young adult, they go all the way to ancestral, right? There is a rites of, so that there is a common reference point, as Darrell was saying, and there is this shift in consciousness and awakening this critical thinking process that says, you are no longer a child, young man, no matter what it may look like. You know, you can't play marbles all day. You can't play video games all day. Now, I'm not telling you not to play video games or shoot marbles, but there's other things that you have to attend to now. Yeah. And we don't have that, and we don't train that, and we don't set these kids up for success. And so now they are in this space where they are getting bombarded with real life issues that we haven't given them a toolkit to work with. And so one of the first things they do, what they've been doing all day, is act, you know, aggressively or violently or dismissive or anything other than friendly or you know, in a dialogue of let's figure this out. And we have to figure out how to get back. And the same for the seniors and the elders, and you know, we have to begin to take more of a role in that process as well, because as Darrell said, you know, there is a life process that's happening whether we want it to or not, and you are involved, and there are certain things that are going to happen whether you want to acknowledge them, ignore them, or what. And that's just, you know, as the proverbial ostrich with his head in the ground, that's not going to save anything.
Right.
Well, it you know, you remind me, the men's ministry, the New Thought men's ministry, is attempting to make some strides in this way, and is starting to bring forward some programs for rites of passage, and both for the teen to adult, but also for the middle-aged man moving from moving into middle age and moving beyond that. And we don't see a lot of that. It seems like, you know, the rite of passage has become, well, let's go to the bar and get you pissed drunk, and so you pass out and you don't know what you're doing and you can't remember anything. And that shouldn't be what it's about, right? It should be, just as you're saying, Z, that celebration of coming to new knowledge, that celebration of coming to a new sense of wisdom, a new layer of experience that helps us to propel into more of a world that works for all.
Yeah. Yes. And, you know, let it be known that we are advocates of that. We, as a spiritual entity, we are advocates of people stepping into their own
Yes.
with wisdom, understanding, knowledge, and action based on that. Because if you get that information, you understand that I can't fight every time something happened to me. And when something happens, I have to begin to do a little self-reflection. What was my part in this? And then we have to say, was it really that bad? I mean, okay, they cut me off in line. All right, I got somewhere to go to, but I mean, all right, I'm going to be 5 seconds late, or next time I'm going to leave 10 minutes early. I mean, there's a whole lot of options that could take place, and we're advocating that we begin to do those again, or even for the first time if we've never done it before.
Yeah. Well, and especially with road and driving, right? that 3 seconds that you just lost by that guy cutting in front of you, go ahead, get mad. You might find yourself being a whole lot later than you thought because of that, because those road rage instances generally don't end all that well. Somebody is getting hurt for the most part.
And, I just had a flash. So the extent of my social media interaction is usually between Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. And every once in a while I get on Twitter, but that seems to be kind of a shouting platform. At least that's the way I see it. But every once in a while I'll get on, because I just, from the standpoint of like the guy from Florida, it's like, okay, I got to understand guns inside and out and have my thing. I got to understand where there was a post by someone's like, what can be done about deeply unconscious people? Like we got to understand what's the water that everyone is swimming in, because it's all the same. It's all the same sea, so we're all swimming in it. But what's close to them? And there was a video of someone getting cut off, and these two cars. I mean, I felt like I was watching a movie scene. They were swerving in and out of traffic. They get to a light. The dude pulls the guy out of the front seat, and they fisticuffs full on, and then jump back in the car and try to chase one another. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, wait, there was a new Netflix series that my wife and I started to watch. I can't remember the name of it. And it was about the exact same thing, and you think it's always men. And in the movie, it was a woman that was doing all the crazy driving. And it gets to this point where, the two characters that were chasing one another they know who each other is. They know where they live. And there was a gun involved. And I was like, okay, so if people don't think that the entertainment influences our consciousness in terms of what's okay and acceptable and how we relate in the world, and we don't do something to check that, I mean, it's always like, is life reflecting art or is art reflecting life? Well, it's reflecting, period. And let us take heed, because it's intense, man.
Yeah, and unfortunately, there's a cadre of folk that say, "Oh, but it's just art. It's just art." Yeah, it is just art, but it's a dangerous art.
Yeah.
And I get it. We want to be able to reflect things in consciousness that may be unconscious, and people may not be, fully aware, or something they need to be made aware of. But we still need to be responsible about the art. We don't need to be so explicit. Every thought does not have to be published. I mean, you leave something to the imagination. And that's not happening. It's full on, and now when it's done, I'm left empty because I don't have any options. You done gave me all the options. You done showed everything. I don't know nothing else to do now. So I just have to sit there with it.
Yep. As we're sharing, what jumps into my head here is I recently got sucked into the John Wick franchise. I don't know if either of you gentlemen have.
I haven't watched it, but I know what it is. I watched the trailer and I was like, I saw enough. Thank you.
Yeah. And I like Keanu Reeves as an actor, and I kind of like the limited things he says about social life and in the public. And so, all right, And it was about 3/4 of the way through the first movie, I realized, well, damn, this whole thing's been nothing but one big fight. Like, there's no dialogue here. There's no romance. There's no storyline here. This is just, how do we get him from that fight to that fight? And how do we get another gun in his hand? And how do we do this? But it's addictive. I've watched all 3 now, and I'm just waiting for the 4th one to come on Amazon Prime for free. And so again, we allow ourselves to be indoctrinated into, and I think it's especially more and more with our young folk, it's tougher for our teenagers to draw that distinction between, okay, this is super fantasy here, this has never and should never happen, and a healthy response to aggression, to danger, where, again, back to what Darrell's saying, if that's all they know, that's how they're going to respond.
And again, I mean, Darrell put the elephant in the room with the critical thinking. We're giving these kids all of this information, and they haven't developed the critical thinking skills to determine or to make a differentiation between what is an and that's, they have to have that critical thinking to say, this is a movie and this is not what we do in real life. And then at some point you have to start the critical, is this real entertainment or is this indoctrination? Maybe, I don't know.
Okay. So you're saying the gun lobby is the real groomers out there. I got you. We're going to save that conversation for another week, folks, because we'd be here all afternoon if we went down that rabbit hole. So the gun lobby is grooming our youth. Yes, maybe that's next week's show.
There you go.
But we are about running out of time here. So I want to give everybody a chance to, I want to say thank you for being with us this morning. And Reverend Darrell, thank you so much for being here. Now that we finally got you on the show, I trust it won't be so long before we get you back again.
No, sir. I will be back very soon. It was a pleasure to hang with you too.
Thank you. Folks, we're going to say thank you to our sponsors and our organizational donors real quick, and then we'll be back with our final thoughts. Please don't go away. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors and donors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown Atlanta, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Spiritual Center Kitchener, Om Center for Spiritual Living, Center for Spiritual Living North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, Center for Spiritual Living Seattle, and all of our individual donors and sponsors. Thank you for being a part of the New Thought Media Network. Please come be you. All right, folks, here we are at the conclusion of another episode of Ministers Talking Shit. Our great guest and special guest and great friend, Reverend Darrell Jones, has been with us today. And as we do every week, we're going to kick off some final thoughts. Rev Z, you're up first.
Hey, I think one of the best things we can do now, let's start exploring some rites of passage programs for every aspect of the age spectrum, even into the ancestral range, and begin to form a unity like it could be, and I think should be, around the world.
Beautiful. Thank you. Reverend Darrell.
I'm inspired by current teacher Sadhguru. Explore the intelligence of ignorance. You do not and will not ever know everything about yourself and life and everyone else, so be intrigued.
I like that.
The main point for me today, folks, is it's time for more dialogue. Especially with those folks around you, maybe you don't agree with. Let's have real dialogue, whether that's online or in person. We have to move forward, I believe, a perspective of communicating and not just with our guns.
Yeah.
Folks, we're out of here for now. Please stay tuned to the New Thought Media Network. We've got a full day of programming coming up. I'm not going to list it all because we're running way short on time. So we're going to get out of here for now. But thank you for being with us. Join us again next week. We'll be back here on Friday morning, 7 a.m. Until then, we wish you peace and richest blessings. Bye now.
Peace.
And thanks for listening to this week's episode of Ministers Talking. We'll be back again next week with more commentary on current affairs, world events, and any other our ministers want to talk about. And if you found value here, please share our with your friends. Until next time, peace and blessings.